Hello. Welcome to La Kudlo.
Yes, welcome to La Kudlo. We are a segment on MaCC Radio.
My CC Radio.
Yes, yes.
I'm Mama Mojo.
My name is Yoli.
And welcome to our digital archive, our playground, our brave, safe space.
Yeah, here we talk about all the things you couldn't talk about at your mama's house.
At your mom's house, okay?
Yeah.
In our adult life, we're like, you know what? Let's talk about it. Let's move through it. So I'm super excited to be back home.
I know. We missed you.
I missed y'all.
I missed
y'all.
you.
I missed the coven.
Yeah.
I missed this space. I love being in the studio and seeing all of our people.
We in the studio.
Catching vibes.
Catch us in the studio.
I'm so excited. We're holding it down for DJ Tia.
Tia, we miss you.
Tia, we love you. We missed you. Get what you need, babes. Get what you need.
We're holding it down for you, baby girl.
Yes. So, as you know, if folks been watching, we usually start off with some variation of a breathing, grounding, prayer, mashup situation.
And why do we do that? Why do we ground? Why do we pray? Why do we breathe? Why do we center?
Because it's necessary. A regulated nervous system allows you to make good informed decisions. It's data for your body, how you want to show up for yourselves and your people. We be in the hustle and bustle of life. We be moving too fast.
Yes, we ground so that when you're hearing the stories, you're hearing it from a regulated nervous system lens. That's special.
All right, so I'm going to ask you to prepare your heart and minds, folks.
Hallelujah.
If you can. Right, look here. I ain't going to get in my bag. I'm fresh off Jamaica, so I'm like, let me minister to you, okay? If you can, for folks to put their feet flat on the ground, shoulder length apart. Just slowing down a little bit. If you can, put your hands under your belly in your center. That's where your intuition lives. That's where that sacred pause lives. And I'm going to ask folks to breathe in from their belly all the way to the top of their head. Hold it. Do not rush to exhale. Go slowly. Yes, I'm breathing into the microphone. I'm going to ask you to breathe in from the belly again. Breathe out. At your own pace. Shout out to this train that does it every time we get up on here, okay? If you can, lightly tap under your belly button just to give it a little wiggle, just a little aliveness. Remember your breath. Continue to breathe in. Our breath is a gift to us. It is a tangible reminder from God that we are here, we are present, we are alive, we are well. And we have spaciousness to grow and thrive. While we're in this space, God, I ask that you open our hearts and minds to receive what is for you is for you. What doesn't resonate, charge it to the game. I ask that our heart posture, we want to dive into vulnerable conversation today, to lean on each other as we're just navigating some topics and things that aren't the most, pleasant conversation, but this is a part of our purpose. This is a part of what we're here for, and we're super grateful. I ask that the ancestors surround us. I ask that Guinea continue to uplift us. God, you are our center. We thank you for all these opportunities. We thank you for waking up this morning. Amen. Ayibobo, Ashe.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
I feel grounded. I feel centered. Thank you for that.
No problem.
We've missed you. We've missed this.
Listen, I miss being home. I was out there. I was like in my journal. I was like, I gotta share some things when I come back. So I feel like I'm ready to unload the clip.
Let's do it. Cool. Let's unload the clip. Welcome to Download and Debriefs. We're gonna debrief the things we've been moving through. What's been up? Where you been?
Jeez, where have I been? I wouldn't say sabbatical, but I was fortunate enough to go to Jamaica for some time. Take a little moment, a little sacred pause. Mama needed a break. Shout out to my young son. I love him so much.
We love you, King.
We love you, Papa. Jamaica, I went to a retreat. My doula hosted a retreat. It was super cool. I sat at the table. And it was just a time for me to gather with other priestess and other folks to really replenish ourselves, because a lot of the time spiritual workers, all the things, like, we get depleted. We be trying to hold it down for everybody, and like, it's so refreshing to have other priestess see you, and like, you can move through certain levels of vulnerability and like just hold you in a real way. So like, I was super excited. Yeah, you know what I mean? The depths. Yeah. And just like regrounding in our principles, regrounding of like why we do this work, and like what does it mean to be a sacred woman, a priestess, a this and a that. So like, because before I left, I was like, fuck that, I am nothing. I'm nothing.
I remember. Are you still nothing?
I'm very much everything and nothing all at the same time.
Yeah.
I was very much like chin checked. I was like, I'm not a mermaid. What is that? This is an ego identity and da da da. But I'm also just like, what I gathered was like, that's a part of my DNA. That's just a part of my archetype. That's just who I am.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yes, I was reminded my ponytail was gathered. Definitely.
That's a powerful download.
Yeah.
Welcome back, mermaid.
Thank you.
We missed you.
So have you seen me doing the most? I'm just, doing my thing. I'm stepping into it. I think that was the download. It's like,
step into it. Lean in.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we want to run away.
Oh, that's me. I'm a runner.
She a runner. She a track star.
Listen. But I think also what moved me in that way was kind of like the world is going to shit. So like, how dare I shine? How dare I be loud and audacious, and like the audacity?
It's now we need your audacity.
Yeah, the audacity.
If there was ever a time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that felt good. That felt good. What you going through? We see we got the tresses, the locks.
I cut off my locks. I am going through a rebirth right now. Like, I'm literally living a rebirth. But it was beautiful. There's like, June brings up a lot of grief for me. So I was moving through some grief. I was also moving through some amazing opportunities. La Cruz Lo. We had a beautiful piece featured in an exhibit in New York.
Yes.
And you were at the Met Gala here.
Oh, it was giving Met Gala. My sissy said we wasn't invited, so we're going to make our own.
Exactly.
Shout out to Boy Girl and Cinema Club for having a beautiful, beautiful moment.
Yeah.
And we were featured.
We were featured. And so, yeah, that was crazy to me.
I was 2 cities one time.
I was literally shook a little bit. So that's why our title of the episode today is Queer Your Reality.
Absolutely. What does that mean?
Yeah.
The film really deeply moved me. I was like, oh, actually, I'm doing life wrong. I need to queer my reality.
But, other things that I'm sitting with is like, Miami feels like it's on fire. Like, Everglades, they're trying to build a prison on sacred land.
Right.
Which
will backfire.
Right. The 287G agreement. City of Miami passed that, and so it basically allows City of Miami police to act as ICE agents, and so it just feels like a lot of political warfare on our people. So I've been like just grappling with that, and then it was like World War III for a second. Like, what was Iran finna do? I was like, I need to know what Iran's finna do before I pay my rent. Like, what you finna do?
I got a car payment due.
What are you gonna do?
So
like, there was a lot, but I think this space here on MyCC Radio allows us to like reground,
to process,
to share, to process. So I think the world is changing so fast, and I think it's so important to build your laku. Like, who is in your yard? Who's in your yard is so important.
And like, really, I think this time, because everything was happening so chaotic at one time, we're like, what does safety look like? I know we've been talking it, but it got real fast. Where like, I'm having conversation with my family, like, if I go to jail at this protest, who's gonna bail me? What's this? Do we have safety
planning, family preparedness?
Yes.
Like, if you were to get separated from your family, like, what is the safety plan for yourself? So it's something for us to think through right now collectively. So,
and who's the most vulnerable? And like, Tia brought up a good point around. We were talking about just like, do your folks know if they're like legal, not legal, what their status is? Because a lot of time we come and migrate to the country like super young, and you don't even know your status. You don't even know what's happening. So just like, having certain conversations with your family, just like temper checking, like, we good, we straight, like, who's the most vulnerable, like, how do we have to move? Do we like, even doing the tree system and like phone calls and all the different things. Getting your important documents together.
Get your affairs in order.
Right. This is not the time to play. It's not. Even I think that even in the climate, like politically, it's like chaos. It's also like the heat is telling us something. It's hot outside. The storms are coming. The floods are coming.
The floods.
And we can't be cute and be like, oh, a sandbag is going to do it. No, we need to have candles, waters, the radio, like all the things that we've been skating basically in Miami. Like
Yeah.
we've got away with so many storms, like not hitting us.
Yeah.
I feel like unfortunately this
Prepare
year,
your house.
prediction-ish vibes.
Yeah.
I think that we really need to prepare in that way. So I just don't want us to be like displaced and like going through the motions when we could have been preventative from the jump, rather than waiting till crisis happens and we're like, we ain't got no water, we ain't got no gas, we ain't got.
Yes.
Because you're gonna come knock on my door, I'm gonna help you, but I'm like, yeah, I got
Exactly.
family. I got family, I got baby.
Yes,
You know?
prevention is better than intervention. So get prepared.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel good. That's where we've been moving through. But today's a really special episode.
So excited.
We have our dream guest speaker.
Today, on today, honey.
Right. Like we went straight to our dream guest. And we are going to be talking about queerness. And
Yes.
yeah, I want to welcome Nadege Green.
Woo, woo,
We're so happy to have you. This is beautiful.
I'm so excited.
So you're
about
gonna
sit
sit
here.
on Ernisha's chair.
I'm gonna be in the background supporting.
But for those who
thank
don't know
you.
Nadege, like y'all have y'all Beyonce, we have Miami, we have our Nadege, okay? So Nadege is a
Miami's
mother.
Beyonce.
Miami's
I'm-
Beyonce. Yes, yes. Nadege is a mother, writer, researcher, curator, storyteller who fights to ensure that our stories are made visible. So we're so grateful. Like, I'm like, and founder of Black Miami Dade, like the #1 most followed Black history platform ever. Is it ever?
in Florida.
In Florida. In Florida. So welcome, Nadege.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. How are you feeling?
I'm good. It's a nice sunny day outside.
Yeah.
The rain stopped.
Yes.
So I'm good.
So happy to have you. So before we jump into the juice of it, we actually have some trivia.
Ooh.
So we like to warm up with some trivia.
Am I being quizzed?
You're being quizzed, but we want to get to
Okay.
know you more.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you're going to answer the first thing that comes to mind. Something fun, something cute.
Okay.
We're keeping it cute. And you can share why, or you can just share whatever comes up. But we are going to start. So what is your favorite book?
My favorite book, Create Dangerously by Edwidge Danticat.
Create Dangerously by Edwidge Danticat. Yum. What is your song in rotation right now?
Cat Comfit 2 with Burna Boy and Joey Duet Filet.
Yum. Okay. We got Joey Duet Filet. Sunset or sunrise?
Ooh. Sunset.
Sunset. That's a vibe. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
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 How many cups?
Black.
Black?
Haitian coffee. Haitian coffee. With sugar.
Okay. Grillo or tasso cabrit?
Tasso Cabrit.
Okay, come
Yeah.
on. Put some
Yeah.
respect on it. It's
Tasso
a Chuzo, okay? This one is a really interesting question. Ernisha told me to ask you this, but who is your Miami big three? When you can think about three people culturally, music, politically, who shaped you. You're one of my Miami's big three. But who comes to mind as like these three people or artists remind me of Miami?
Ooh. Okay, Miami Big Three. This is hard.
Yeah.
There are so many. Okay. Gwen Cherry. She's the first black woman attorney here in Miami, first black woman on the state legislature. Just amazing, amazing Miami. There's a park named after her. Most people know Gwen
Wow.
Cherry Park.
Okay.
That's that Gwen Cherry.
Wow.
She did her big one here. Trick Daddy, I feel, is the soundtrack to my Miami.
Yum.
Fun fact, I was like behind the scenes on the Take It to the House video because it was
Really?
filmed at Miami Northwestern while I was in school there. So,
Wow.
you know, no production credit, but I was behind the scenes. You know, this week is Bulls Week.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow's the West Fest, so Miami Northwestern is just cutting up right now.
Incredible.
Definitely Trick on the music side. Like when I think Miami soundtrack is Trick. My third. have to say Dr. Dorothy Jenkins Fields.
Who's that? I'm not familiar.
The founder of the Black Archives History and Research
Wow.
Foundation.
Yeah.
She is definitely, as a historian, as a preservationist, as an archivist, like I just feel like she's like in that, like you can't not name her as an important keeper of our history.
That's
So,
incredible.
there are so many more though. Like I can keep going.
You can keep going.
I can keep going.
I love that. What's your top 3 astro chart? I know you're in Aries, Sun. Do you know your moon and your rising?
My rising is Aries
You're double Aries?
and my moon is Leo.
Oh shit, that's like triple fire.
Fire.
Okay. Why you don't give me like I don't know if I experience fire from you in that way.
I have to be very mindful
Okay. I love
so
that.
that I'm not a dragon.
What's your favorite spot in Miami?
By the water, anywhere by the water. From Hollover to Virginia Key.
Yeah.
I just love being by the water.
Yeah.
The ocean calls to me. It's my favorite place. It's my quiet place. Sunrise or sunset or in
Yeah.
between.
In between.
I love being by the water.
What's your go-to fashion item? Like this needs to complete your fit. You got to dress on. It's like, all right, let me put this on.
That's hard because I'm such a collage of items. I love thrifting.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know, like what era am I going to be today? I mean, I feel like of late, definitely my hoop earrings have been
Yeah.
like my finisher. I love big hoops. I love big earrings.
Okay.
So I think earrings are my finisher.
I love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And lastly, what is your favorite dish? For context, if we had to do a World Cafe and you had to present a dish, maybe Haitian dish, which one of it would it be to present our culture?
Bouillon with crab.
Really?
Yeah, bouillon with crab. Because I feel like bouillon is the perfect dish because it can also be an appetizer,
Yeah.
size-wise, right? So you can just give it as an appetizer. You can also have it deconstructed if you just want to pull out the dumplings
boy,
and some
yeah.
of the root veggies and sprinkle a little sauce. You can have you can create a whole nother meal
Yeah.
if you like take out the broth, but it's still yummy.
Wow.
And then it's just like a whole meal. And I like my bouillon with some of that, the crabs that try to get you at
Yeah.
Bravo Supermarket.
Yeah.
At Presidente.
I love
They
that.
sacrifice their young to get
I
the
know.
crabs. My mom used to tell me I have to get the crabs because my arms are longer.
Yo, it would be so scary when they would be cooking the crabs.
You'd be like
and
this.
like
But I'm a pro now. I'm like, nah, come on, let's go.
I love that. Bouillon or soup jumeau?
Both.
Okay. You can't pick. Okay.
Both.
Okay. I love that. That was Get to Know Nadesh. All right. So I wanted to ground our conversation in this quote that I read by Ocean Vuong. And it says, being queer saves my life. Often we see queerness as deprivation. But when I look at my life, I saw that queerness demanded alternative routes. It made me curious. It made me ask, is this enough for me? And I love that quote. It's Pride Month, and I look to you often because of like the work that you've done in the past. And just curious, what does queerness mean to you? I know you've done research around queerness, but how do you yourself define it?
You know, for me, I think queerness is an expansiveness in existing. Queerness is a politic. It is not just something you put on,
Yeah.
right? Queerness is just,
Yeah.
and it is welcoming.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially when it comes to familial relationships, I think queering your relationships, it's so integral to having good relationships, whether
Yeah.
that's your familial relationships, your intimate partnership, and your friendships. I think queerness is rooted in this deepness of love and expansiveness and possibilities.
Yeah.
And I think if we bring that into our relationships, then, you know, we are embodying the politics of queerness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's powerful. How did you come to this self-discovery for yourself?
Like, how did I know I was queer?
Yeah.
I always, it's funny because I have friends who are like, no one thought you would ever
Oh, really?
marry a man. Like,
Yeah.
we just knew you like girls. I think my friends actually were able to name it before I could. But I've always liked who I liked.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, I look back at elementary. I think my first kiss was with a girl.
Really?
Yeah.
That's super sweet.
But yeah, I've always liked girls and guys.
Yeah.
I didn't have language for it, but I was just like, oh, I just like who I like.
You just like who you like.
And I was married once, and I was married to a man, and I think there's an assumption that if you date both genders, that you have to choose one. You know, the bi erasure is real in these streets.
Yes.
But, you know, I've always been fairly true to who I am in my interior. And then after my divorce and I started dating women seriously, I had to start talking seriously to family members. I didn't talk about it before because that's who you're going to see. And I'm not going to have y'all be like, oh, that's your friend. I'm like, that's not my friend.
Right. That led me
That
to my
is,
next question,
that
too.
is my woman.
Like grappling with like Haitian identity and being queer. Like, how was that, like sharing that to your family?
You know, it's interesting. I have a very loving family. Like,
That's good.
I come, and we've always had queerness around us. Like, I come from the dance world.
Okay.
All of, like, my best friends were gay boys, and they were
Okay.
always at my house
Yeah.
being fed by my Haitian mom.
Aw.
And, you know, like, our home was always a safe space in that way. But I did worry about, like, oh, what happens, like, when the identity is yours?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I will say that I was met with nothing but love. You know,
Aw.
there were folks who were also like, yeah, we knew. Like, no one is surprised.
Yeah.
But no, I was not met with any sort of being pushed out or like, there were, of course, questions like, oh, you like girls. This came from an older person. And they were like, but doesn't mean like, you kiss them and stuff. I'm like, that's exactly what that means. Like,
That's exactly that.
I kiss girls. That's
Yeah.
what that means.
Wow.
But no, my immediate family has been nothing but loving and welcoming. When I did the Give Them Their Flowers exhibit on Black queerness in Miami, like my mom was at the opening and was
saw
just
her.
beaming and so happy. And she was one of like my biggest supporters in making this exhibit.
Wow.
You know, behind the scenes and just how important it was.
Yeah.
And so I am very, very blessed to come from a loving and like a family that just accepts me.
Yeah.
Even if at first, you know, sometimes you have to give your family a chance because I think I made assumptions in my own head. I don't think those assumptions were unfounded, right? But like fear also sometimes will block you from considering other people's possibilities and expansiveness and growth even.
That's a
Sometimes
download.
there's a learning process, a teaching process along the way. And so I've had to like sit with that. A lot of it was my own fear.
Wow.
But I am absolutely thrilled that, you know, when I did speak to my family openly about my sexuality, that it was met with care, it was met with love, curiosity.
Yeah. No, that's so important. I think for many folks who are listening who may not have that, you know, so it's like, it's so refreshing. I grew up around Haitians who, in the church specifically too, can be a little bit more homophobic, transphobic. And so it's like really unlearning some of those things that you picked up.
Oh, yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So lots of unlearning to do. But that's so special that you have that loving family.
And also I think meeting queer Haitians from Haiti also
Yes.
was really important because, again, I think, especially when you are part of the diaspora, there are so many ways that we are disconnected from each other, that we don't get to see each other. And so, you know, there is a way that sometimes Haitians talk about queerness as if it's something you encountered in the U.S., like, you know,
Yes.
like, oh, like, y'all different over there.
Right.
And I'm like, there's so many queer Haitians.
In
Société
Haiti.
M in Haiti. And so just also seeing, like, the activism and organizing of queer Haitians in Haiti, and being
100%.
in community with some of that, you're also anchored in like, oh, this is just part of who we have always been, who we
Yeah.
are, learning the history of queerness in the place that your parents come from,
Yeah.
learning the history of queerness, in their adopted country, like all of those intersections, right, I
Yeah.
think have been very important on my personal journey, but also just in the expansiveness of knowing our stories
Yes.
as queer Black folk,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, Ashe. And you talked a little bit about the exhibit, but I printed some things here because I wanted to read directly from like what was said here, because there was folks, like I was reading this story from Maven, and there was someone who attended and was like, the fact that this queer exhibit was held in Little Haiti, and like those contradictions of like, yeah, sometimes our people can, when they don't know, can be homophobic, transphobic, and like that contradiction and being so embraced in Little Haiti, and holding that exhibit in a time where there was so much Black erasure, queer erasure was so brave. And I remember how I felt at that show. I was like, whoa, this is also possible for me. Like, being able to see a dark-skinned Haitian, Black, queer, just living in their truth was like, wow, that expansion is possible for me too, to step into it. So I was really impacted. I was like, whoa, thank you for putting this on. But also, what was that like, being embraced? Like your mom was there, family was there, and just being able to do something that was never done before.
Yeah, I try to approach us with deep love, and I don't make assumptions about our communities, right? Like there were people who were like, did you hesitate in thinking about bringing this to Little Haiti? I was like, no, I never hesitated. I never overthought it. And every step of the way, it was supported and well received. So again, I think sometimes we block our own possibilities by making assumptions. A Black queer exhibit in the heart of a Black Caribbean neighborhood was one of the best things for 3 months in that neighborhood.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And it was like a 3-year process. I mean, much of that exhibit was just a few years of me just researching. The exhibit was born out of actually a question that was posed to me by my good friend Corey Davis, who's executive director of Maven Leadership Collective, and we were teaming up to just create social posts on the history of Black queerness in Miami. And of course, the things that I was almost immediately able to find were Black queer artists in early Miami. So like folks like James Baldwin, Josephine Baker, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, like they all had a presence here in Miami. And so it was like snapshots of their time in Miami. But after we were done with that series on social, I got to thinking, I was like, I didn't really find anything about the interior. I didn't find anything about people from Miami.
Yeah.
And that bothered me because I know Black queer folks existed and still do, right, in this space. And so that is what got me on this research hunt to find anything I could find about Miami's Black queerness. And there were, like, I call them like little nuggets along the way, whether it was an ad promoting one of the drag shows in Overtown that an archivist friend shared with me, or talking to an elder who shared the name of an MC, Phil Harris, who was one of the go-to MCs in Overtown. And she was like, yeah, he was an openly gay man. And so a lot of what I was able to find was through oral histories or able to cross-reference stuff once people gave me names and things like that. And so it was a process in the sense that, there wasn't like a book about Miami's Black LGBTQ plus community. Much of the writing that has been done on queerness in Miami is very much focused on white Miami and Hispanic Miami,
right?
But not Miami's Black community. And so this was answering to the silence where records either were not visible or did not exist. So as part of the making of this exhibit, there were new records being made because we were doing oral histories with people over 50. One of my favorite humans in the exhibit, Dr. Naomi Cobb, is in her 70s, and she talked about growing up behind the segregation wall in Liberty City, but she also shared like the drag shows that would happen behind that segregation wall. The neighbor who, kept a low cut and only wore men trousers and had a wife, but she was a woman, right? Like these sorts of stories, like the stories that you would not find in a book or in a newspaper article are in the memories of the folks who lived it. And so we turn to oral histories, a good part of this exhibit, and also using photography as an important archival tool and commissioning beautiful photographers like Vanessa Charlot, who's also a Black queer Haitian woman.
Come on.
And so she photographed the participants. And she and I recently actually just published in the Journal for Haitian Studies an article about the making of the exhibit called Queer Daughters of Memory.
Oh my gosh.
And it's about like being Haitian memory workers in the South through the lens of this exhibit.
Whoa.
And I think it's important to name that, we're in the Deep South.
Yes.
Right?
And they try to say Miami's not the South.
Miami is the South. And when people say Miami's not the South, I'm like, this is just Black erasure happening in real time.
Right, exactly.
Because it erases so much of the stories of Black Miami going back to 1896 when the city was founded. It erases the stories of the racial terror of this community, the lynchings that happened here, all of the fights for civil rights and equal treatment that happened here in Miami's Black community pre-civil rights era. When people are like, this isn't the South, and I'm like, this was the Jim Crow South. Like, what are we talking about? Like,
let's wake
words
it up.
Mean things, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a purposeful erasure that happens, or even not purposeful if you don't think of it, because I think it's cute to be like, oh, we're in the state of Miami, we're not in the state of Florida. But when we look at it through a historical lens, I fight against the ahistoricalness of rebranding this space differently than what it is, because it also allows this space to deny its truths and the stories that come with that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yes, this is two things at once. This is both, in fact, a Deep South.
Right.
And it is a very Caribbeanized South.
Yeah.
It is a very Latin-centric South today, right? But the layers upon which all of those things are true. But first it was the Deep South, and it still is.
And it
still is.
And we see that happening as the political landscape unfolds.
I will never let Miami shed its Southness.
Thank
this is
you.
the South, capital S. We in the South, okay?
We are in the South.
And if you grew up in the right neighborhoods, you knew you were in the South.
Exactly.
Because you had grandmas. People's grandmas were from Georgia, they were from Mississippi, they were from Jacksonville, and it came with all of the Southern grandma-ness, So this is in fact the South, and we're not going to erase, those Southern roots for comfort or for this rebranding or marketing that makes this place other than the South. It is the South and then some.
And the politicians remind us that too. Every day that they can.
We in the South, y'all.
We in the South. I actually had really two close participants that were in your show, Barbara and Frederica.
My boos. They're my aunties now. They are my aunties.
And Barbara said something. I'm trying to find it in this paper. Barbara said something that was so beautiful. I wanted to quote her. But she was saying how, like, the exhibit allowed her to smash the lie because they had to live a lie in their queerness and, like, living in the closet. And so, like, being able to be displayed in such a way allowed them to, like, smash this lie and to live their truth. And I thought that was so beautiful and powerful, the way that you were able to make the invisible visible through this exhibit, and what that transformation was like a ripple effect for so many people. So thank you.
It is my pleasure. And I have to say, like, with all things, un filme shai palu, right? Like, it was never just one person. While certainly I shepherded this through the research and the creation, but there were so many hands involved in bringing this to life. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Don't mind me if I sneeze. But especially our participants, right? Like, sharing their expertise. This exhibit does not exist without them, right? So, I'm like, this was our exhibit.
Right, and
it was a queer homecoming.
Yes, a queer homecoming. That was what it was.
Miami.
A Black queer homecoming.
So many people, like from Vanessa to Whistler, the other photographer involved. So many people. Lonnie Johnson, who made the beautiful altar installation to honor our queer loved ones who are no longer with us in the space. to Maven Leadership Collective, who gave the first funding for this exhibit to come to life. Even like my buddies at the University of Miami, Dr. Donette Francis and Dr. Jafari Allen, who were like, yes, we're gonna like support, what do y'all need? You know, so it really was a community effort in bringing this to life. And so I have to say that because it is never only one person.
Big ups to everyone who had hands in it. And even here now on MyCC Radio, we're experimenting with archiving our stories and archiving the things that we want to share. As an oral historian, like seeing the political climate unfold, how do we archive? Why now? Like, why build an archive? I heard you talk a little bit about how, like, even the online world, we're squatters on there until they wipe us out. So it's like, how do we continue to archive Black queer histories, Black queer resistance and existence here in Miami?
Well, first I have to give a book recommendation. You have to read Scattered and Fugitive Things by Laura Helton. It is such an amazing book around like the importance of saving memory through the lens of like early 1900 librarians and archivists and thinkers, from Arturo Schomburg to like scrapbook makers of the Harlem Renaissance era, like all of these different, from like to traditional librarians. It like spotlights all of these different stories around memory keeping. I just think it's a must read for anyone who's interested. And also because the idea of fugitivity, I think, is very important right now, because we're seeing a lot of our institutions being defunded. And without funding, the idea is that the work won't continue. Sometimes you have to go underground with our things before we can bring it back to life to save it, right? And so there are all of these different ways in which I think fugitivity will serve us in these times, which is, it doesn't mean that the work doesn't happen, but how the work happens and what is the creativity in making that work happen, right? It could look like printing history on a vinyl, right? It could look like,
I love that,
an art show. It could look like music. It could look like poetry. There are so many different ways in which our history has been saved, but also we have to create ways for it to be found. Right? When we are long gone, they will say we were not here if we don't make an effort to keep our stories and to save those stories for future generations. And that could look like a lot of ways. There are the traditional models where, you know, maybe you create an archiving day of items and you donate those items or scans of those items to a holding institution. There are several that hold history here in South Florida, from academic institutions to the library system to places like the Black Archives. So you do have these traditional holding places. And of course, with all things, like they're like accessibility, like how much does accessibility matter to you? Like maybe the public library system or a state university is more accessible than a private one. You know, so all of these things for you to consider. But I also think even in our own homes, like we should be doing this. I think first and foremost, how do we make it so that our families can find our stories when they look for them? Not just outsiders, but on the inside. I am 39 years old, and I want to say it's not until like early 30s I really started understanding like my parents' migration stories. Because if you think about it, we don't really talk to our parents when we're younger, or at least they don't talk to us.
Right. It was like about survival. L'école, l'église, la caille.
You know, and they're busy, but like as they age, they also have a bit more time and they soften up. It takes a lot of vulnerability to tell your story. And also if there's trauma in your story, as most migration stories will have, then you're not always in the space to share that. But I think as our parents get older, they become a bit more softer and a bit more open to share those stories. So like for the first time, you might be finding things about your mom or your dad or a cousin that you otherwise would not have known. So my thing is always like, look to the elders. Like when there's Thanksgiving, family reunion, after a funeral, like what would it look like to like have like these family history moments, right? Where maybe you pull aside two elders and record them on your iPhone. You don't need fancy equipment. You have voice memo on your iPhone. I also find one of the things we often lose when we lose our folks are their voices,
That's so true.
right? We don't hear them. And so I think voice memos are an important tool, but also transcription, writing out the things that they say.
Right.
There are so many affordable printing options these days that I'm like, even if you're having a family reunion, I feel like the family reunion used to come with just like a little pamphlet.
Yeah.
I'm like, now it can come with like a whole book,
Exactly.
right? Like a family reunion book, and like just print limited edition, right? Maybe 30 or 50, whatever, family chip in, but you have multiple copies in the family that tells the story. One of the things family members fight the most about, after someone's passing is photos. So
Yeah.
like if you're scanning these photos and you're like
Sharing them.
making a family yearbook every year, like put someone in charge. There's always that one person who loves a project.
That's so true.
Put someone in charge of the family yearbook. It could be lo-fi. Print out some photos, cut them out, glue them, make some photocopies, staple them, boom. But it can be as lo-fi or as hi-fi or bourgeois as you can get, right? Because
Yeah.
you have like these small printing presses online that will print your stuff. But I really think it is imperative upon us to be making counter narratives, to be making counter productions, to be making things that you can find in the analog, because we make beautiful things in a digital space, but the digital space isn't forever.
That's a bar.
MySpace is gone.
I
right?
know. Yeah.
Vine, gone.
Gone.
Right? So think about all of the things that were on there.
Yeah. Gone.
So many of our photos only live on our phones.
Yeah.
So I'm like, print things.
Yeah.
That's my big thing. I'm like, print things out. You don't have to print everything, but like curate a thing, print it, put it together, and share it.
I love that.
Like we have to be analog, because it's a lot harder to erase a flyer than it is a social media post. The algorithm cannot erase your zine.
Period. That's beautiful. I'm really moved by that, and I'm gonna start mine.
Go make a zine.
Go make a zine. You have the Black Miami Dade. How do people engage with that? You've had pop-ups, and you are archiving Black history and sharing that, and people are sharing with you. You're getting that. It's like a reciprocal relationship. How do people here engage with that work?
Yeah, so if you want to follow and support Black Miami Dade, Black Miami Dade is a history and creative studio here, founded by moi, that resists the erasure of Miami's Black past. And you can follow on Instagram at Black Miami Dade. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website.
Perfect.
There is a TikTok. Not a lot of uploads on there, but you can follow that too. At Black Miami Dade is on TikTok technically.
Yeah.
And yeah, send us your Miami throwback photos, share your stories with us. I
Yeah.
love, we are the experts of our stories. There's never one person who is the expert of a space. I share all the time, like there are scholars who spend an entire lifetime being a scholar of James Baldwin,
Right.
of Toni Morrison.
Yeah.
This is a geographic region that is really big, from County Line Road to South Dade, right? And so we have all of this expertise in our communities. And so my role is not just in creation, but also amplifying the expertise that exists.
Yeah.
And so when people want to share their stories, I'm always like, how can we support that? And, folks will send us photos, or they'll share like, oh, this is my mom's migration story, or did you know my dad was this person? And then we post it on Black Miami Dade, and then like all of these other comments pop up like, oh, I knew your dad this way, or
Wow.
oh, my mom knew your dad,
Yeah.
And it becomes like a family reunion. It's like a digital
Family reunion.
family reunion / yearbook vibe that happens in the comments.
Yeah.
But also we're in the analog space creating one-on-one and in-person convenings where we get to be with each other,
Yeah.
where we get to learn from one another, where we get to encounter elders in intergenerational spaces. And so I'm really big on building out community, not just in the digital space, but in real life. And so I operate in this hybrid world where we're both. We do analog and digital things. So.
Yay. That's incredible. I'm feeling so inspired and so full by this conversation and you being here.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. Is there any final things you want to share to celebrate Pride Month, Black queerness, to folks listening.
Yeah, so to all the Black queer babies out there, especially the Miami ones, or who are growing up in places like Miami, I think the one thing I just want to share is just be you, love you. I was surrounded by queerness. When I look back, like, you know, my high school years, my middle school years, and I think just take up space. Take up space. Know that you are incredible. Know that you are worthy. Know that you are that person, right?
Yes.
That, you know, regardless of what you might encounter in the world, regardless of the side eyes, because they don't know what to do with your fabulousness.
Right.
You know, I just reject all of that and just take up space. Take up space. Be bold. Be you. Be tender with yourself. And find your people.
Yes.
Find your people and find the people who will love you and lean into that.
That's beautiful. Find your people. Find your laku. Thank you,
Find your
Nadesh.
laku. Yes. Find your
Ashe.
elders.
Find your elders. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Love y'all.
Thank you for being here.